You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Thank you so much for joining me. The interview subject I have prepared is a fella by the name of Ryan Felton. He's in Perth-based outfit Chaos Divine. The reason for the chat is to talk up Legacies. That's the name of the new album from Chaos Divine, a killer modern rock and metalcore influenced effort, I've got to say. Plenty of original touches. We talk about all of that, as you will appreciate if you have listened to my podcast before. So let's get to it. Here he is, Ryan Felton from Chaos Divine.
Hey, man.
Mate, how's things going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I am plugging away. Yeah, just come off an interview a minute or two ago, mate. As I tend to do, I tend to like talking to the musicians about everything that's going on in your world, mate. Now it's your turn. So there you go.
Okay. Gonna put you on this little ledge here so I have to hold the phone. Can you hear me okay?
Good, mate. I can hear you loud and clear. So there you go. Yeah, no worries. So you're over in Perth, are you?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken to, I think most of the Australian artists that I've spoken to over the past 4 years or so come through Perth, but that's obvious because I'm talking to all of the artists that Lee organises through Firestarter, and I've got to say, with you guys and with every artist that I've spoken to from Perth, I just love everything that comes out of that city. I don't know. For me, everybody goes on about Brisbane, but, with Powderfinger and something for Kate, or from Adelaide, weren't they? Scream Feeder and all of those sort of bands in years gone by, say 25 years ago or so. But, mate, these days, as far as I'm concerned, it's Perth. Perth all the way.
Yeah, but I think particularly if you're into your heavy music, I think it's there's no shortage. And in the past, I think we've done all right with bigger international bands getting pretty big from Perth. So yeah,
punching above your weight. And look, let me tell you, you're actually the first member of a rock or metal band that I've interviewed since the death of Eddie Van Halen, and I'm a big fan.
Oh, wow.
And I saw that you guys posted a tribute on your Facebook page. So why don't we kick things off by we'll just discuss it for a little bit at least, how important Van Halen is to rock and heavy metal and how he influenced you guys with what you're doing.
Oh, man, growing up, when I was getting into metal, it was, obviously the era was probably like the kind of Black Album to the sort of early Sepultura stuff. But I sort of didn't immediately get into like the guitar sort of virtuosos. And then I discovered Steve Vai, probably the first like big guitarist in that kind of space that I sort of took an interest in. And then from there I discovered Van Halen on that kind of path, and just amazing. Like I was immediately kind of blown away with some of the solos and stuff he was able to kind of record. And for the time, I think there was no one else doing that, really high energy arena rock, but just totally kind of crazy shred guitar stuff. Because at the time, it was all ballad sort of, the hair metal at the time was all ballad stuff, whereas he was sort of really out there with his guitar playing. And then I think, for what he's done in terms of just like the electric guitar sound on records, I think is amazing. He's basically pioneered the sound of what a metal guitar sound is. And, that still continues now. His amps and his guitars and stuff, they're like the benchmark in terms of tone. So, yeah, I think he's just had a huge inspiration on so many bands that probably a lot don't realise if they're sort of a bit older.
Yeah, agreed on that point there. I don't think people realise that. Look, I'm an old school metal maniac, and I can definitely hear the link between Hendrix, Richie Blackmore, and Van Halen. But for most people, it goes from Hendrix to Van Halen straight away. And it's arguable to say who sort of took over after that, whether it was Satch or Vai or Malmsteen maybe, or whoever it might have been. But I don't know whether Van Halen has been bested as an iconoclast insofar as the most copied guitarist of the postmodern era, so post sort of
Mm.
1978 or thereabouts. He's just the alpha and the omega, and
Yeah.
I've spoken to so many artists in the world of the broader scale, or the broader panorama, if you like, work with me when I say that, of heavy metal, given the diverse subgenres that are out there these days, that everybody loves Van Halen. He's just one of those guys that
Yeah.
is just universally lauded, and without him, a bit like Michael Schenker, I don't think that metal would sound the way it does today.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, certainly the way the records are produced, and also, techniques in terms of playing an electric guitar in the modern space now, like even what we could classify now as sort of technical, heavy music in a lot of different genres. I mean, all that playing style dates back to Van Halen is really the pioneer. I would have thought, like in terms of the metal sound in a guitar solo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, let's talk about Legacies, because that is the name of the new Chaos Divine album. Look, I'm hearing plenty of killer modern rock and metalcore influences, but that's not all, because there's a lot of nice original touches. Let me single out the slide guitar, the intro on No Savior. I love that. Is that you that did that?
It is, yeah. I got hold and I've got it right here. You can see it.
Nice, yep.
A little slide, which I just sort of pop on the end of the fingers. So it's not the full slide, but it gives me the ability, because that song, I mean, I didn't write a lot of the riffs in it, but I put that lead over the top at the end of the recording. I thought I've got to find a song in this record to put some slide on, because we've never done slide on any of our songs, and I'd always really wanted to do it, and that just was like, okay, that's the song. But then I sort of I dug myself in a hole, because then I had to go back and learn to play it, the actual riffs in the song. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to be able to do this and hold a slide. But I managed to learn that song while putting this on my finger, even just for those two parts. So, yeah, it's we played it live. We played that song live at the last show we played just recently at Slayfest. And, yeah, pulled it off. So it's definitely one of the heavier, sort of faster songs on the record.
So are you nervous, excited, or are you just relieved that release day is almost here? Because I understand that Legacies is out on 16th of October.
Yeah, I'm excited. A little bit of relief. We've been working on it for a very long time. There was some interruptions with the recording process, so we had to kind of put some things on hold for a while and then come back to it. Things took a bit longer than we thought. We, decided to go down an avenue which, like, had us sort of releasing a single a year ago, even though we'd sort of hadn't finished the record. So we kind of broke the recording up a little bit. But now, I guess, with everything happening around COVID and stuff, it probably hasn't worked out too bad that we're releasing it now, which, while it doesn't give us the opportunity to kind of play shows, all over the country or anything like that at the moment, I think people are pretty excited to get new music at the moment, and we just kind of want to capitalize as much as we can on the fact that it's been so long since we've put a record out. We didn't want to make people wait too much longer. We were all really excited to get it out, and we planned to do it sort of middle of this year, but with COVID happening, and we sort of pushed it back a little bit and a little bit more. So we just thought, no, we've got to do it, because there's no line of sight as to when things are going to go back to normal. So we just bit the bullet, and yeah, it's here now.
Good call, because this is an album that needs to be played live. So have you mentioned there you've played live already? So Perth is obviously open for live music.
Yeah, we had Slayfest. So Slayfest was originally scheduled for March, and it got postponed or put on ice. Then they kind of promoted the same gig, but just with all Australian artists and all Perth artists, actually. So it was really good, because obviously everyone that had bought a ticket, if they still were going to come, they were pretty excited. They ended up selling out. It was at Badlands. and there was probably about 400 or so people there. So they had some restrictions on the rooms and multi-stages, but it was really good. Just like that feeling of being at a gig again, being around people, having a beer, not having to bloody stay at home and watch things online, which is, as good as that is for bands, it's just not it's not the same. Yep. And just everyone was just in such a good mood because gigs are finally back. So
getting out. Yeah.
There's been a few more gigs now being advertised. I've seen. So yeah, we've got our album launch at the end of November. So we'll play a show here, and then hopefully we can come over east early next year, just depending on when things open up.
Well, after the election here is the word, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
They're going to start opening up the borders because, a lot of it is political, unfortunately, but I digress. Yeah. Who writes the material then? Because you mentioned there the second cut there was written by the other guitarist, I take it, or so do you guys collaborate, or how is it that the tunes come together?
Yeah, we generally, me and the other guitarist would write the bulk of, I guess, the starts of the songs, so structure-wise, so we kind of get together and flesh out some ideas. I guess there's a couple of songs where one of us might just sit down and write a whole song and send it to the guys, and then we kind of tweak it. But it's generally started by a couple of us, and then after that, we just get into the rehearsal room and flesh it out and sort of change bits and pieces, and then generally the singer would come in last with light vocals, and then we'd do a little bit of a rewrite when it comes time to almost sort of getting into the studio. So, once he's got a good idea of exactly what he wants to sing, and if there's any parts that needs changing, we might do a bit of a rejig at the end as well. So, yeah, it's kind of almost like a 3-step process.
Yeah, fair enough. And look, what about the challenges? Because it's a very cohesive album overall. It all links together beautifully. So did you have to work to overcome anything specifically?
When we started writing it, it was quite a long time ago. So I think between when we started and where we ended up in terms of the last song we wrote, we were just a bit mindful that it had been so long that the vibe or the sound was going to be quite different. But it all came together really well because I think it's a good collection of what we've done previously in older albums, some of the heavier stuff, and the last album was a bit more melodic. So I think it sort of strikes a really good balance in terms of that dynamic. And when we listened back to all the songs we recorded, we're thinking, do we need to cut any because they're not really gelling. We didn't really see any issues there. Like, we all felt all the songs flowed really well. There was a good sort of good balance, and no song on there was kind of really out of place. Whereas in the past, I think sometimes what we've done is we've just sort of ended up with songs and gone, okay, well, we'll just do them all, we'll just record them all, and that's it. I haven't really thought about, the whole end-to-end record. Does it actually make sense? Is it, do the songs have a theme? Do they actually flow together? I think we did it a little bit more, had a bit more time to think on that, and I think we've got a pretty good product in the end, and we're really happy with how it's turned out, production wise and songwriting wise. Yeah.
On that note, who did you work with from the production element, because it is crisp?
Yeah, so we did the drums here in Perth. Oh, we recorded it all in Perth. Drums first with underground studio. So a guy we've worked with, Brody Simpson, before, who did drums on Colliding Skies as well. So he helped us record those. We went to another friend's studio in Perth, who runs a place called Hammer Space, and we actually know the guy really well. He's actually, fun fact, he's the guy that plays the guitar on top of the Optus Stadium when the Dockers play. So if anyone wants to know,
for the AFL, for the AFL fans out there, which
so
virtually
he got the gig as the purple rocker for the Dockers. So we give him shit about that all the time, actually.
So for my
now he's
pause for a
started
sec.
singing as well.
The for my United States listeners, guys know how much of a fan of AFL I am, which I'm not. I'm a rugby fan. You see, do like the force which plays over there, but the AFL in Perth is like a religion, isn't it? It's like in Melbourne, so people follow it massively. So this guy stands on top of the stadium, like in what is it, Metcash Arena there, I think it is, where the Jets play and also the New York Giants play. And he plays in front of about 20 or 30,000 people a gig, I take it.
Oh, more. I mean, the last year when he was doing it, it was full house, which is 60,000. So, yeah, no, that was good. Yeah. He became a bit famous after that. So, yeah, we recorded with him anyway. And then, we had basically did all the vocals at my place. So we set up a vocal studio here. And just tracked everything else here, all the little bits and pieces, extra leads and things like that, on all the vocals. And that took quite a while because that was almost like the 1%ers that you kind of keep going back and changing things and re-adding things and layering things up. So, and then we had Forrester Saville mix and master again, who did the last record, but we sort of gave him like quite a specific brief. Like we actually wanted it to sound a bit hotter, a bit heavier, a bit less like an early Carnival record and more sort of like a Gojira record. That's kind of the sound we wanted. Fantastic. I think I showed him Magma. I showed him the production on Magma and I thought, fuck, that's the tone, that's the
I can hear that now.
I can hear it. And we actually ended up using an EVH to record a lot of the guitar tones anyway. So we've got that Gojira tone on the rhythm tracks. So yeah, that was kind of our benchmark, I guess. And, he did a really good job of kind of giving the songs that sort of end product. And they come out really well.
You mentioned Gojira there. Fantastic band. I saw them play at Download down in Melbourne a couple of years back. But it alludes to a bigger point, which is that your guitar playing and your compatriots' guitar playing is an extremely notable element of the guitars, of the band's sound. So without it, the band's sound isn't there. And there are vids of you covering Meshuggah online, which I think was very impressive. That's good stuff. So are you inspired by band? Of course you're inspired by Meshuggah, otherwise you wouldn't have done it, the Colossal Swedes. But Gojira, and what other bands were you inspired by?
Yeah, a whole range, really. I mean, I listen to everything from sort of like, quite heavy death like Behemoth and Meshuggah and stuff like that. Gojira is obviously a massive one for pretty much everyone in the band. But I don't know. I listen to a lot of electronic stuff. I listen to kind of a lot of early 80s rock. I don't really have one particular kind of style where I think, if I'm going to write a new Chaos Divine song, I'm going to go back to my, listening to this band and try and do the same thing. I don't know. I might hear something in a song and go, oh, fuck, that little like repetition is kind of a cool idea for a riff, and I'll take it away and do my own version of something else. So, yeah, I don't really have a set sort of style that I really listen to all the time. Nothing but Thieves, like that kind of rock, that like UK rock is really, I really dig that as well. Yeah, and the other guys are quite similar actually. Mike, the bass player, is quite similar. Tim, our drummer, he's a bit more on the brutal side, so he's right into his deathcore. He came from a deathcore background, so he used to play for deathcore bands before he joined us. So he's always showing us like ridiculously heavy stuff and saying, "Oh, we've got to play this." I'm like, "Well, hang on a second, we're Chaos Divine, not it's like,
not Morbid Angel."
pull the reins back a little bit, yeah. So, but he brings a really good element to the band because I guess that's where a lot of the heavy riffs came from. He sort of came in and thought, well, yeah, let's play to your strengths and write a couple of songs in a bit of a heavier vein, and it worked out really well.
I did stalk you on Facebook, as one does when they're preparing for an interview, and I saw on your personal Facebook page that you posted this. You said that record companies in 2020, they never reply to direct emails, but instead they use your email address to spam you after the fact via their e-marketing list and then bombard you with God knows whatever message they need to via spam. And I did see that people we know, such as Andrew Hogan, I know Chris Murray quite well, they got involved in the interaction. But obviously you're using Firestarter, which means that you're financing Legacies yourselves. So did you actually try to reach out to labels and attract attention? Because I'm curious here, because it is a strong album, and I would have thought that an Earache or somebody like that, if you went that far, would have been at least interested to have a conversation with you.
Well, I mean, we've done the shopping around since we had Human Connection to try and get interest from labels like that. So we're on their radar. We've had people, mention the same thing, every time we've toured or something, why aren't you on a record label? And the reality is, I mean, it comes down to how much money and resources you as a band had to commit to be able to have someone like a record label put their resources into you. And at the end of the day, we're still five guys trying to make a living out of the band as well. So for us, I think while it's important to have people that would invest in you from like a record label or whatever, we've actually had a lot of people tell us like, well, at the end of the day, like if you can get people that are interested in you from a touring perspective and they want to have you on a festival, or you've got a band overseas that you can work with and build up a fan base in another country. I mean, a record label doesn't do a lot these days, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, I'll get what you're saying.
There's an era where they did, and there's probably an era now where you're seeing a lot more bands at our level take on that independent approach. I mean, even big bands, there's some big bands that have chosen to go on independent, albeit they have a lot more kind of a network than we do. But yeah, I think the record label thing that model is getting a little bit tired. And we've found we've been able to work really well by just branching out our networks into the right areas to do what we want. So, for example, we've got a really big online retailer that's actually stocking our album and merch overseas now. So anyone that wants the record, they're not only helping us, but they're actually helping a small business over there that will ship them all the music and the merch.
Who's that? Which outlet is that?
That's Merch Booth. So they do like Leprous, they do a whole bunch of prog bands. And Rob, who's been amazing to work with, like he's super interested in the band. He really loves our sound, and he just wants to genuinely help. And they're not making a killing off us or anything like that. It's not about money for them. It's about supporting bands and getting us into a market that we're not currently in. And we've got a whole lot of people that like that, where we've made those networks. That means it's a bit more legwork for us as a band to do ourselves, but at the end of the day, we just want to be able to tour and have as many people listen to our record as we can.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point you raised there about record labels and the influence that they do have these days, because I don't know whether you've been following what's going on with Earache, and I've spoken to a couple of international artists about this, but there's a few very disgruntled former bands and even illustrators such as Dan Seagrave. Well, he's the one that I know. I shouldn't say illustrators. He's the one that I know. Is not that I know him personally, but you know what I'm saying. I've seen his interactions on Facebook about things, and labels are struggling as much as the rest of us, I think. And the conversation that I just had before getting onto the call with yourself was, how do you cut through and make your band prominent insofar as attract likes and clicks and therefore sales and interactions and hopefully Spotify listens, which will lead to you being able to get an income and then potentially tour in a certain territory. And mate, the answer is, if you've got an answer, bottle it and sell it for $1 million, because nobody does. We don't know how to do it. It's incredibly hard with backlinks and all this sort of bullshit going on with e-marketing and the way that Google's algorithm works and the like. You've got no idea truly how to appeal to it to get best bang for your buck. All you know is what's available and how much funds you've got and just hope for the bloody best. But
Yeah,
in that way, I suppose it was no different to bands in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that were just putting things in newspapers like Time Off or whatever the equivalent was in
yep,
Perth. Um,
yep,
and just hoping that people sort of turned up to gigs. I don't think it's changed. I just think the medium has morphed into what it is
yeah,
these days. But I do feel like we're up against it a little more these days as artists, because I'm a musician too. Because of the volume of people that are struggling to get their music heard on Bandcamp, and I think Bandcamp's fantastic. It's not a knock on Bandcamp, but you're up against the billion other artists that are on there at the same time. So, have you got any out of the box ideas for how you're going to promote yourselves? Because this is a great album, by the way, and Legacies is an album that deserves to be heard by as broad a possible an audience as you can possibly reach.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think the key to it is not thinking that the be all and end all for a band is, and particularly now when you can't tour, the be all and end all is not the day you release an album. You know, I kind of like to think that when we put out music, you know, it's going to have a lasting effect. We don't write music so it's, you know, joining a fad that's over in the next year. And I think what we'll be able to do with this album is really push it as far as we can in terms of, you know, we'll do another couple more singles when we can tour. Obviously, you know, it's going to give us a good opportunity to. We've had the product out there. People would have heard it. Certainly in Australia, at least, we'll start to kick off a bit more international marketing with the next single. You know, we just haven't had the financial kind of resources to throw lots of money overseas with this record at the moment, given that what's the end result? We can't tour anywhere. So that bang for buck completely diminishes as an artist in an isolated city. So we just have to be strategic about that phasing, you know, like, yeah, the album comes out next week. Early next year, we'll be able to kick out another single and a video. And hopefully by that stage, there's a bit of a line of sight to when we can tour. And in the meantime, you know, we just try and market the record as much as we can. Look at, you know, future touring opportunities for festivals. I've even been hitting up Prog Power in USA and Prog Power Europe. So, you know, putting it on their radar and just things like that, where you're almost just stoking the fire now because no one knows when they're going to be able to tour.
Sure.
So that was the reason why I think there's a bit of a benefit in having a record out now. We can shop around while people are in a bit of a downtime, and they go, oh yeah, put that on my radar because, you know, they're actually out there doing things while not many other bands are. So,
are you in a position now where Seven Dust could reach out to you and say, we want you guys to support us for 9 weeks across the USA?
Look, if that came about, I mean, yeah, we reach out to as many booking agents as we can, and just get ourselves on the radar. So, I mean, that's how we've landed other supports here. I mean, it's tricky with touring supports because they don't often reach out to a band from Perth unless, you know, they've got some decent following overseas. So
Sure.
For us, I think we still need to do a few more sort of a bit more groundwork in terms of when we come back over to tour. Hopefully, we can get, you know, a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think in the meantime, it's about getting our album marketed over there properly and just getting it in front of the right people so that we're on the radar.
Sweet, mate. Well, look, I'll wrap things up, but before I let you go, please tell people where they can purchase physical copy, because I know that goes straight into your pocket, and also where they can find you online.
Yeah, so just if you want a copy of the record, we've got merch, bundles and everything. We're selling them directly on our website, which is chaosdivine.net, and you can find that on Facebook and everything else. Good thing about that is we've sort of packaged everything up on our store, so we don't have to go through any other Australian retailers to get you the product, which means we can send it straight out, and we benefit the most that way because it means all your income comes straight in without having to get split out to bigger companies. So that's kind of why we chose to do that, and I think hopefully, you know, if people really like the record, I'd just urge that they jump online and buy a CD or buy a shirt.
Sage words, a band worth investing in for people out there listening, and it got some killer merch too, by the way. It's well worth it, especially for those listeners in Europe and North America, there in the United States and Canada, as I know I have a fair few up there. If you want to get into a killer Aussie act that knows how to play their guitars well and puts on some nice melodic metal mixed in with some brutality, Chaos Divine is where it's at. There's no doubt. And they come from Perth too, so Perth is, as I said at the introduction to the call, Perth is the epicenter as far as I'm concerned. And I'm from Brisbane, Gold Coast actually. Gold Coast, it's just easier to say Brisbane because nobody's heard of the Gold Coast overseas. It's just easy to say that. But look, the music that you're creating there, Ryan, it's killer stuff, man. And, I know this album is yet to be released, but I look forward to the next one as well because I've had this one for a couple of weeks, at least sent it across. But
Yeah.
it's a killer collection, mate, and long may you continue to do what you're doing. So thanks for the chat.
Oh, thanks for the support. Thanks for the kind words. Yeah, really appreciate it.
No worries, brother. All right, look, what I'll do, man, if you're cool, man, I'll just release everything, and I don't edit it. I just put it out there. People love that. They love hearing the whole thing. And I'll just link you in on socials, on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Awesome.
Thanks, brother. All right, go well.
Cool.
Good luck with everything.
Thanks, buddy. Cool. Catch you soon.
For sure, mate. Catch ya. Thanks.
Yeah.
You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Thank you so much for tuning in. The interview subject you just heard from is a fella from Perth, a guitarist by the name of Ryan Felton from the outfit Chaos Divine. Thanks for listening.